This week on the video version of the Business of Tech, Forrester's Tech Predictions, Managed Employee Experience Services, is that the next thing? The security stories of the week, plus Google's certification program and Chromebook saturation. All this and more. Hit those like and subscribe buttons, and here are this week's stories. So we heard from Gartner, time to hear from Forrester. How about some of their predictions for 2022 for tech executives? Quoting from ZDNet and CIO Dive. Forward-looking execs will move to human-centered tech transformation. Forrester expects 10% of tech executives, those at top-performing companies, will focus investments on human-centered tech initiatives at least 3 times the rate of their competitors. Leading firms will tackle this problem by unlocking the creativity of their employees and establishing a new era of transformation comprising human-centered tech initiatives that form a tight link between customer experience and employee experience. There will be a tech talent shortage, and the response will create problems until new sourcing models help. Firms that don't get in front of this challenge will resort to boosting wages to attract talent, resulting in typically negative financial impacts for their firm and the overall talent market. Tech debt will continue to get worse. Companies accumulated technical debt in the aftermath of their technology implementation in 2020, and many organizations still have problems left to address as companies adapt to ongoing change. Forrester is expecting the rapid acceleration of technology will worsen tech debt for 60% of firms. Why do we care? Not willing to agree that boosting wages results in negative financial impacts. I've seen both studies and examples to the contrary. As for tech debt, that's real. Amidst all this transformation, here's the eye IT services companies should have. First, do not fall for the fallacy of sunk cost. Particularly for smaller businesses, the pain of change can be significantly lower, and a competitive advantage to leverage. Investments in the past put a business where it is now, and thus that investment is recouped. Sometimes you throw the old away to make room for the new, and thus have some critical eye not just on your customers, but also on your vendors. Throw out the ones who aren't paying their own technical debt because the IT provider ends up shouldering that debt and risk too. The U.S. Copyright Office has submitted recommendations, approved last week by the Librarian of Congress, to add exemptions to the Digital Millennium Copyright Act's rules governing access to devices and software. Of note is the new right to get into any consumer software-enabled device, cell phone, laptop, etc., for the purposes of diagnostics, repair, and maintenance. You're now also allowed, under the DMCA, to unlock your cell phone, meaning you can switch carriers without buying a new device or jailbreak your router. Also in there, the removal of a passage that made the exemption for computer security research contingent upon not violating any applicable law. These aren't free and clear. The exemptions have to be renewed every 3 years, and the Copyright Office still allows the obstructive service contracts manufacturers can use to deny exemptions for commercial and industrial products. Why do we care? Right to repair is the direction, and progress will be slow. That's the headline. And for anyone in the physical repair of gear, this is very good news. It's good news for consumers too, establishing more of a precedent that you do own your stuff. Even if you don't directly repair equipment, this impacts you too, as planned obsolescence for equipment should not, and seems to be less, the norm. That should change your planning cycles on equipment. Let's talk about the use of warrants, as Signal has released details of a search warrant from police in Santa Clara, California. Quoting ZDNet, in the search warrant, Santa Clara police sought to get the name, street address, telephone number, and email address of a specific Signal user. It also wanted billing records, the date of when the account was opened and registered, inbound and outbound call detail records, voicemails, video calls, emails, text messages, IP addresses along with dates and times for each login, and even all dates and times the user connected to Signal. In response to the search warrant, Signal provided law enforcement authorities with timestamps regarding the account specified in the search warrant. The timestamps showed the dates that the account last connected to Signal. Signal said in a blog post that, by default, it does not collect the requested information from users. The company's interaction with Santa Clara County Police didn't end there, however, as the law enforcement authorities then issued a non-disclosure order that required Signal to not publicly disclose that it received the search warrant. The non-disclosure order was then extended 4 times, which resulted in Signal's request to unseal the search warrant being repeatedly pushed back. In total, it took Signal almost a year before the company was able to legally, publicly disclose the process it underwent when it received the search warrant. So, why do we care? IT providers are going to need more legal expertise, that's for sure. I talk about data management as a service. Use Signal as an extreme example. They don't collect much information at all about users, yet are also under pressure when law enforcement comes knocking. I'm pro-warrant as an approach, in that I believe requiring justified public documentation for the why of data collection is important. In a business context, I still believe there should be justified documentation for the why of data collection because it minimizes risk to the business. The risk of that data getting out, like ransomware, or even damaging customer trust, is a risk to offset. Ask why a customer or yourself is collecting all that data. A bit more insight into burnout. 80% of respondents in a survey by MindEdge Learning are seeing an increase, with 37% saying it's a major increase. 54% of respondents said turnover is higher today than before the pandemic. Most MindEdge survey respondents said their organization are introducing ways to reduce stress or plan to do so, a 9% increase over 2020's survey results. Only 38% of respondents said their organizations were not doing anything to address employee burnout. Kaspersky, too, with burnout data, 2/3 of employees are happy working from home, leaving a full third who aren't. Their conclusion is also a need for well-being as a focus. Of course, there's more on that front, too. Unify Square looked at workplace collaboration. Organizational plans have not suited some employees, with 12.79% reporting that they were more likely to quit their current jobs, and 1.24% would definitely leave. Work from home is popular. 1 in 5, about 20%, enjoyed the lack of commute, and 30% believed that the biggest benefit of working from home was not wasting time in traffic. 1 in 3, about 34%, preferred the more flexible work-life balance, with 23.7% citing that this was the biggest benefit of working remotely. 1 in 10, about 10%, said that working from home enabled them to focus without distractions. People who do work remotely tend to agree that working from home does resemble the in-office work experience. However, almost 1 in 3, 32.33%, said it does not resemble the office at all. Almost half of the employees, at 45.47%, said that face-to-face human interactions appealed to them about returning to the office, and about 14% wanted the water cooler moment of in-person collaboration as an experience. 1 in 5, 20%, wanted to delineate personal life from work life. Why do we care? Gauging employees right now is critical, considering they have more power than ever before. Their mental health is something to manage, and they're more fickle about their choices in life. It's tempting to try and couch this entirely in business terms, and I continue to focus on the intangibles of what do people want out of life. Strong leaders are working with their people to make them happier. Here's some data telling you how they feel. So let's talk about 2 bits of service provider research. First, ISG with their analysis of service providers. Quoting the report, while firms in the US are not expecting all employees to continue working from home, they are planning for lower office occupancy, according to ISG. Investments in virtual collaboration tools are a top priority for 72% of U.S. companies, the report says, citing third party research. ISG finds that between 20% and 50% of managed service providers' U.S. clients have stepped up their engagement with workplace transformation consulting. The scope of managed employee experience services is also expanding, ISG says. In addition to automated ticket resolution and predictive analysis, which are now standard offerings, providers are now demonstrating correlations between high quality digital employee experiences and improved business performance. This market also has the potential for significant growth, as only 15% to 30% of providers' U.S. clients have signed managed services contracts with services agreements based on specific digital experiences of end users, the report says. Let's pair that with Kaspersky's MSP report, which I missed when it came out about 2 weeks ago. Over half, 52%, of businesses polled by Kaspersky cited requirements of special expertise as their top reason for partnering with an MSP. The vast majority of traditional MSPs, at 81%, reported having a bigger client base in 2021 compared to 2019, according to the agency. For MSPs with a focus on security, that proportion was even higher at 91%. When asked to name their top challenges for 2021, nearly a third, at 32%, of the MSPs Kaspersky polled cited competition from other service providers. That's up from just 19% 2 years ago. Now, why do we care? Next to each other, these almost sound like a tale of two worlds. I actually think this is complementary data. Business needs technology more than ever, and it's moved beyond basic infrastructure management. There's a bit of a digital divide between the haves and have-nots in service delivery. How many listeners would agree that automated ticket resolution is a standard offering? ISG seems to think it is. It's not a PSA or RMM feature I've seen yet in any of the established Big Four players, but somebody tell me if I missed it. Only 15 to 30% of contracts with specific digital experiences of end users sounds like the market direction to me. How many of you are thinking about the end user experience? Is that your service offering, or does it need to be? When it comes to delivering cybersecurity services to your clients, there's a lot to consider, and even more at stake. Firewalls and antivirus don't provide enough protection anymore, and adding more tools to an already complicated tech stack is expensive and difficult to manage. The Field Effect Partner Momentum Program, together with their award-winning security portfolio, solves these issues by making it easier for MSPs to deliver complete cybersecurity protection, unlock new revenue streams, simplify operations, and stand out from the competition. Learn more and connect with the Field Effect team today by visiting fieldeffect.com/MSP Radio. I've covered Chromebook growth before and was on a tear for a while there. And now, per IDC, that's off, down nearly 30% in the third quarter. IDC data shows that Chromebook shipments fell 29.8% in the third quarter compared to a year ago. In addition, tablet shipments fell 9.4%. The reason? The analyst says that schools and governments blew out their budgets to provide devices for remote learning, and that the education market is now saturated in the US and Japan. Tablets are off too, just not as much. All regions but Asia Pacific are down. Overall down 15% year over year, North America down 23%. This is Chromebook specific. PC sales are roughly level, if up slightly. Now, why do we care? Saturated, huh? Well, that's education. Doesn't mean that's the only market out there. If one believes in the cloud SaaS world, I think there's space for more than just that one market. And last I checked, society keeps producing kids, an endless supply of customers. A few years ago, Google launched their non-college certificate program for basic IT skills. They're expanding the program, which they recognize and pay at the college degree level, to include more students. Google has announced they will make the certificate program free for community colleges and vocational high schools across the nation. Connecticut has already announced they're offering Google Career Certificates across its state and university system. There are also now 150 companies accepting the cert for some jobs, including Walmart and Verizon. The program is an online program completed at a self paced speed. The website claims completion in 6 months with under 10 hours per week of study. Now, why do we care? How many providers are looking at this program? You're aware there's an IT support one, right? Have you looked? If you're bemoaning not having enough people, well, here's another option. The Hive ransomware gang has gone further cross-platform, extending to Linux and FreeBSD with several new ransomware variants. They aren't the first. Our Evil, Babook, DarkSide, and Hello Kitty, among other groups, have Linux encryptors too. Europol announced the arrests of 12 people involved in ransomware. An 8-country joint operation, the impact was 1,800 victims across 71 countries, mostly large corporations and critical infrastructures. Black Matter is allegedly shutting down due to pressure from governments and law enforcement. And in warnings, the FBI is warning that ransomware gangs are targeting time-sensitive financial events, which means corporate mergers and acquisitions. Operators would use the financial information collected before attacks as leverage to force complying with the ransom. The advisory also notes targeting stock prices too, using the information as leverage to change the market. The FBI has also warned about the Hello Kitty ransomware gang adding DDoS attacks to their arsenal, as Microsoft warns about an increase in password spray attacks targeting privileged cloud accounts and high-profile identities. CISA has issued a binding operational directive to address more than 300 security vulnerabilities within the 6 months, and this focuses on civilian agencies. Now, why do we care? Law enforcement can work, and it will require funding, staffing, and investment. Keep this in mind for this weekend's editorial, too. I mentioned the CISA advisory for the Fed as a checkpoint for others. Worth checking your own systems, too. Today's security stories are rather tactical, and doesn't mean they aren't important. Products we care about because of the strategy implications. After my comment yesterday about SMB products lacking auto ticket triage, Atera has added automated ticketing to its product. Atera Plus uses artificial intelligence and natural language processing to read tickets from end users and technicians, classify them, prioritize them, and route them for response, including an option for ticket deflection, which resolves mundane work automatically. And Microsoft with some noteworthy announcements. While their efforts with the metaverse have gotten headlines elsewhere, I want to focus on less noticed ones. The company has announced public preview of a remote help capability for Microsoft Endpoint Manager, a cloud-based remote assistant tool. It includes options for what is allowed in a remote help session, from viewing to full control over a desktop. Also announced, Microsoft Defender for Business, an endpoint security solution including EDR, auto investigation and remediation, as well as integration to Microsoft 365 Lighthouse for IT partners. Pricing is $3 a user per month, or included in Microsoft 365 Business Premium. And Endpoint Manager now has custom compliance options for Windows and cloud management for Linux. Custom compliance allows use of a PowerShell script to detect any setting and report back, including messages to users to enforce compliance. Now, why do we care? I'll revisit the metaverse another day. Today, it's about strategy. Yesterday, I cited ISG data regarding automated ticket resolution, and here's exactly that. Not from a Big Four player, and instead from one of the agile competitors coming for them. At the same time, Microsoft's machine to come for the MSP space rolls on. Their management tool now allows remote assistance, the beginnings and an already useful feature of custom scripting, and now that integrated security platform. The reason to care is that while tools alone aren't the solution to service delivery, there does come a point where they are a drag on the business, not an enabler. The fallacy of the sunk cost, focusing on past investments rather than present and future costs and benefits. The market is different, the conditions on the ground are different, the needs are different, so the past solution isn't necessarily the future one. I predicted disruption in this tool space for 2021. I could easily declare victory with what happened to Kaseya, and instead we'll focus on these moves as the key to the actual disruption, because the first primed the pump to create the openness to make a change. Thanks for tuning in to This Week in the Business of Tech. Shows come out each week, pulling together the daily podcast. If you like this show, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. The content is here because of supporters like you. If you want access to shows early, answers to your questions, and private interactions, join our Patreon. It's pay what you want. You decide what the content is worth. Join at patreon.com/MSPradio. Patreons also get access to the written versions of every story as they come out. If you want the stories right away, you can get them on the daily podcast. Find The Business of Tech on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your shows. Subscribe links are at businessof.tech. Talk to you again next week.